We are going to use our relational equality and logical operators in order to ask questions. These questions are going to allow us to do decision making in our programming. So this is using what's called a conditional or a branching statement, where we can say, if this happens, if this value variable stores this value, do this. If not, do something else. So now we get the chance to execute some code over some other code. Previously, all of the code was executed top to bottom. Now we get to choose. Do I want to execute the code in this location or in this location or in a different location? So this is what we're going to do with conditional or branching statements. So our programs are starting to get a little more complicated. The main branching statement is called an if statement. It can be used in all situations. And only one block of code is going to be executed per if statement. So the if statement starts with the keyword if. Every if has an end. And there's various types of if statements. So here is the most basic if statement. We have an if conditional statement. This is our question, where we're using our relational equality and logical operators, where we're comparing values stored in variables to see maybe what the user entered in or what our inputs are. So if this conditional expression is true, that's one of my answers. If it's true, I'm going to execute the code inside. If it's false, though, I'm going to skip over it and keep going. So that's our most basic if statement. Here are some other versions of if statements. So we can say, if this is true, execute the code inside. If it's not true, skip over it and execute the code below in what's called an else. So here I get to choose to either execute this or execute this. It only chooses one of these. So if it executes this, it ignores that. If it executes this, it ignores that. So there's my second version of an if statement. My third version of an if statement is where I have what's called else ifs. So I have more questions to ask. So first I ask this question. If that question is false, then I'm going to ask this question. If that question is false, I'm going to ask another question, and I keep going until I hit my else, which is my default. So once again, it's going to execute this code. If it executes this code, it ignores everything else. If it ignores this one, it's going to execute one of these. If it executes this one, it ignores these. So it chooses between one of these blocks. And we can have as many else ifs as we want. We can have an else. We don't need to have an else. But that's what an if statement looks like. We get to choose between one of these options to identify what code we want to execute.